Welcome to the We Rock DM podcast, your source for all things digital marketing. Join hosts Daniel Bisett and Tricia Ulberg as they explore the latest trends and share their expertise on how to succeed in the digital age. Tune in for expert advice on search engine optimization, social media marketing, and content strategy. We make kick-ass stuff kick-ass. So join us and learn how to rock your digital marketing game. Welcome back to We Rock DM Amplified, the podcast that amplifies your digital marketing and web prowess. We, your hosts, Daniel Bisett and Tricia Ulberg, are absolutely thrilled to introduce our newest guest, the dynamic Alyse Deanda-Zagada. Known for impressive impact in the fashion world and as the visionary behind the Joli Fashion Society, Alyse exemplifies creativity, style, and entrepreneurial gusto. In this episode, we'll be diving into the exciting intersection of fashion, web technologies, and the art of community building. So tune in and get ready to explore the fashionable side of the digital world with us. Alyse, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. You were once our student, now our colleague. How are you doing? And first and foremost, you said in the warm-up to this podcast that you're a polypreneur. What made you choose the Joli Fashion Society over any of your other side hustles for today's show?
I think more than anything, I really want Texas to expand in their fashion community. And so when it comes to the website and what we're going to discuss today, any way I can amplify that and get very well educated feedback would help me a ton in really making sure that my points and what I'm really trying to do for the Texas fashion community comes across well.
Okay, that's awesome. So before we get too deep, I'd really like to kind of unpack the too long didn't read, the TLDR of Joli Fashion Society. So can you give us your 45-second elevator pitch? What is it and who's it for?
Yes, so Joli Fashion Society is for everyone to start with. It is an organization that supports each Texas city's fashion community in order to elevate the Texas fashion community as a whole. So it's really focused on the person that's creating clothes in their house, the person that loves to write about fashion but is not being supportive. So the website's goal for that as well is to have a blog section for them. It's to give all of the Texas fashion community a place to have a space, a healthy place. It's not toxic, no one to be, nobody to be, I have dogs.
It's totally fine.
Nobody to be nasty or negative or any type of negative impact on the community as a whole.
Very cool. Alyse, and it's okay if your puppies are barking a little bit. We know that we all do this from our home offices. It's one of the things that makes it so awesome that we can work from home. So I wanted to know, was this your idea? Do you have a business partner? How did you decide to get into this in the first place?
I do not have a business partner. I am a solo creative here. I have been in the fashion industry for about almost 10 years. I'm 25, so I started when I was younger. I started in the Valley, and then I worked my way up from there. Now I'm in San Antonio. And so the goal of it all, I have cats too. So I'm sorry if I start looking. It's because I have one in particular that will sit on my laptop if I'm not careful. And I think y'all know that from class when she just walks in front of me. I'm so sorry. If I'm looking at her, I'm like, please stop. But I am solo on this. It is fashion is a huge, I don't say fashion is my passion, but fashion is a huge part of what I love. And ultimately, it's where I want to work in and work towards. I'm currently in the financial industry. So being able to get out of that and by promoting this community and being able to work this full time would just be where my heart is happiest.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, so tell me, if I was so you are targeting people who have a desire to do the same, like be part of the fashion community. And when you say like non-toxic, what do you mean by that? Like, it sounds like there might be some you're trying to do something different than is out there. You're right, pivot.
Right. So a lot of the fashion industry, it's very cutthroat. I think everyone knows that. It's very cliche to think, oh, you're going to go in there and someone's going to probably scream at you and make you cry. I mean, we've all seen The Devil Wears Prada, okay? So and it's true in some senses. There are people, and in every career, there are people in this world that are not so nice, or supportive. And what I'm trying to do is build that really strong, supportive community. It's from the get go of starting this, I said I won't tolerate any nastiness, and that is true and true. If you have an opinion and it's not what someone else's opinion is, respectfully either disagree or keep quiet. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all, kind of situation. So I really want to create very healthy environment, but also guiding people in Texas towards that higher end fashion, that higher quality of fashion. So when you think of fashion, there's New York, there's Paris, even LA is kind of thrown in there. We're as large as the Miami Fashion Week. Miami has a fashion week. They also have a swim week, and that's huge for them. There's no reason why Texas can't sit at one of those lower tiers, but still have a space and place to talk. A lot of designers do come out of Texas, especially Austin, which I know where y'all are from. So, just I feel like if people had a little more encouragement and love from where they're from before they go out, because I think that is necessary for them to leave Texas to achieve the higher goals, but to come back, they'll want to give back to their community a little more.
So your target audience are people who want a career in the fashion industry, but they're living here in Texas. Maybe they don't have the opportunity to go move to Paris currently, and so this is a good place for them to get started in their career. That's
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And also, I really want to make a name for Texas. I'm a huge Texas girl to the heart. I'm from the Valley originally, so even the Valley does not have that type of support compared to San Antonio, compared to Austin, even compared to Dallas. So trying to get every city to hit that level of Dallas would elevate Texas as a whole.
Okay. That makes sense. And I know that in Dallas, they have the market. That is where a lot of people, yeah, I've worked in retail here. So I know that that's where the store owners tend to go when they're restocking their shops. That makes sense.
Neiman Marcus is Dallas. So
Yeah.
there is quality here. And obviously someone had a vision for Texas to do that.
Yeah.
It's just now let's encourage it to happen, not so much on the mainstream corporate level. Let's do the little people. Let's get those small, business owners.
And so, go ahead, Daniel.
I was just going to say, as Texas grows in the world of technology, because Silicon Valley is now turning into Hill Country Valley. I feel like there's more and more opportunity, because the high end fashion, it ain't cheap, and so the Benjamins have to be around to support the fashion society as a whole. And I think the more tech that comes, the more money enters even to the smaller locations. And I think you're priming the pump. You're getting ready for the positioning. So that's really exciting.
And that's crazy that you bring up the technology, because in New York and the larger cities, digital fashion is a major. I'm predicting that is the next up and coming fashion way. I know people don't want to admit it because it's scary, especially for our models. They're starting to use AI for modeling instead of actually allowing human beings to model. But it's the way of the future. I mean, either we fight against it and we lose because it's going to happen, or we go with it and you become a pioneer. And that's another thing I truly want to focus on with Joli, is to focus on bringing the fashion technology to Texas as well, because it's such a frontier that we locally have not explored, and just New York is barely tapping into it. And I'm really predicting it's going to come in a massive wave within the next year.
I agree with that. I just bought a dress and it had an AI model, but I could spin it and see how that dress would look 360. So I know what you're talking about. That's very cool. I was going to also say, Alyse, that I think that a lot of smaller stores are actually looking for Texas brands. Wouldn't you say? People like to carry local designers. So I can see that that would be another benefit to this.
Well, so we've identified kind of what you're trying to achieve. And you mentioned that Joli Fashion Society is for everyone, but from my experience, when you throw the net out so wide, you leave big holes in the net, and it's hard to catch a single fish. So if we're going to explore this, could you identify the one or two primary types that you're trying to connect with? Yes, in an ideal world, anyone who is interested in fashion and has a closet full of clothes or materials for designing would love to be a part of this. But who are the two people that you need to get in touch with first in order for this to scale?
I guess it's really starting with the local designers. I think designers nowadays, everyone has an e-boutique and those or e-stores, or they just sell on Instagram. Hey, I made this, buy it. And people are loving that. So I think the local designers, maybe not so much boutiques right away. There's a place for them, but the designer, the creative. And so that's where I'm focusing on, is the creative of fashion. So that's when I'm saying like, oh, I want bloggers and photographers and models, well, because those are the creatives of fashion. They create the narrative. Boutiques are lovely. I like them. They're very still our staple, because that's where a lot of the local models will start working, as those local boutiques. They get some of their experience through there. But I do have to say, I know it's still going to give you a broad spectrum when I say, oh, the fashion creative, but I don't want to necessarily close off like, oh, I care more about photographers and designers than I do models and writers. And so I just want to say the creative, because whichever space they're in, me as a person that started this industry, I have interest in it. I've read blogs written by fashion writers. I've watched models. I've been in modeling. I have modeling friends. I know designer friends that I went to college with. I know the spectrum. I know photographers and I know the videographers. So I know the spectrum. I don't want to say one in particular, but I do care about that creative aspect. Where are they going to really change the field for everyone?
All right. I mean, and I think that is, I feel like that is a tight enough net to really then focus your content strategy. So right now I feel like your content strategy, at least on your website, feels a little vague. And that kind of tracks with what you said at the very beginning, that it's for anybody. And so I think you can be more targeted without excluding. Right? So if the content, the tone is more geared towards the creatives without excluding the non-creatives, then the non-creatives can see that they're welcome, even if you're not speaking directly to them. But one of Mr. Rogers, we all love Mr. Rogers. We grew up with Mr. Rogers. I mean, you will have grown up with reruns of Mr. Rogers, obviously. But one of the key strategies for Mr. Rogers that enabled him to reach so many children was that when he was speaking to the audience, he was actually looking and speaking to one child. And every other child felt like he was speaking directly to them. And so I recommend that you take that same strategy and you find that one individual, that one creative, and speak directly to them, and all of the other creatives will hear you and feel you, right? So that's
And
where I think you ought to go.
I completely agree. And I think you two, as creatives of yourselves, of your own, y'all can understand that when one creative gets spoken to, you would feel it on some sort of level because you resonate with
Right.
that creative like energy, that creative
Yeah.
spirit of being in that realm. And it's not so particular to just designers, or
Right.
it can go up to web development.
Hmm.
So I'm really not trying to close this off to people, but you're right. Speaking to directly the creative will definitely get my passion and my heart across to them for them to feel it a little more personally.
I think that is great advice. And Alyse, I would like to see that more on your website. What you just explained to me, that makes so much sense that you are focusing on the creative aspect. Whereas, before you started explaining that to me, I was kind of thinking more traditional local designers being picked up by local shops. I understand what you're saying now. You're trying to elevate the creative side and kind of push the envelope, right? And having a supportive network for these designers to go big and therefore elevate Texas. I would like to see that more in the content on your website. I was looking around on your website during that as you were explaining it to me, and it's not completely clear. So
Right.
I feel like that's something that we could talk about. Let's dive into your website and talk about what we see there.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now for those that might be following us one day on the likes of YouTube. Um, so, looking at your website, um, I see straight in front of me, welcome to Joli Fashion Society, which is great. I now know where I'm at, but I don't know why I'm here necessarily,
Mhm.
right? And I don't know that I'm in the right place for me. Maybe someone recommended I come here and I see Joli Fashion Society and I go, okay, this is the right place, but nothing else. I take no other comfort from it. So
Right.
going back to the creative, the image, um, uh, I mean, I feel like I'm looking at a shirt, maybe some lipstick or something down in the side, some shoes, but I don't really know what that is supposed to mean to me. That's just
Right.
clothes, right? In a setting. If I had a lifestyle image, someone on a runway, someone hemming a dress, someone doing something creative,
Mhm.
it might, that alone might make me feel like I'm in the right place.
And
But
that's
then,
really,
yeah,
I'm
go
so
ahead.
sorry, I'm going to interrupt real quick. That is
No, it's
really
fine.
interesting you say that because I actually had an image of runway of people doing something, and I thought, am I not getting across of my target? Like, am I being too specific to, I
And
guess, the
that
person that's looking at it?
right,
And so
right.
I changed it to this.
That's a really great question to ask, and that's why in class we were always talking about A/B testing, right? And when it's something that is low budget at the moment, and you don't have the ability to A/B test something, or the traffic really over a short enough time to get a real solid answer to that question, it's good to ask that question. And I do think maybe a runway would be too specific, right? I think maybe the shot of someone sewing something onto a dress that's on, a mannequin might be more uh, might be more broad than a runway, which is also very busy, right? Even if it's just an individual, I can hear and see the people and the music and the lights, and it's very, very psychologically busy and loud looking at something like that. Whereas someone stitching something might, and you could have, instead of a mannequin, you could have a human wearing it. Instead of a woman, you could have a man that's doing it to make it clear that it's, for more than just an individual. But it's something that maybe you want to test and you want to put it out there to see. So the other thing, though, is at the very top, we have Welcome to Joli Fashion Society, and below we have Welcome to Joli Fashion Society. We don't need it twice. I would say that this top H1 element really should be something impactful that answers the question. So when somebody lands on your website, what is the question that they have in their mind? What are we trying to get them to do? What problem are we solving? Give that to them right here. So what is the problem that you see with the Texas Fashion Society or Texas fashion in general? What's the problem for the creative who wants to grow? And then answer that. So that's a real question, not a rhetorical question. What's their problem?
I think the lack of support. I really truly feel like a lot of these people that are very creative don't have support. I'll be very honest. Me working in the financial industry, I do see that fashion is not, or retail in general is just not really, I don't say highlighted, but maybe some are fashion. Fashion's not really like, oh, that's a career until they're like big names in New York, And in reality, you can be a career in fashion locally, So really, I guess the support of the community through their levels of their career will really be like the pain point of Texas. That's what I'm seeing.
Okay. Just real quick, Tricia, and then I'll pass it over to you. But that to me then suggests, I heard you say career maybe several times. That to me suggests that the pain point for the creatives in fashion in Texas is that it's hard to scale, it's hard to grow. So maybe you need to incorporate the wording here that clearly demonstrates grow your designer career or your fashion career with us. And I wouldn't use those words. They would need massaging for sure, but you want to convey that sentiment right there in the very large welcome to Joli Fashion Society instead of that. And you can have that a little bit larger below the image perhaps and make them feel welcome. But
right,
we need to change those words there.
And that makes complete sense. I think we spoke a little bit before as well that I created the website, and I asked y'all to be as brutal as possible. I like y'all, so I love hearing the feedback to it. I want to let the audience know it's okay. But also, it's very important that, I do see that. And since I created the website, you see it in one way until someone comes around and creates it in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Alyse, I was just going to echo what Daniel said. When I think about what kind of imagery would resonate on your website, I did start thinking about the production, right? The production cycle, maybe somebody stitching a dress on a mannequin or, I think, and maybe this is part of the problem, I don't know. When I think about the fashion world, I think about the movies that I have seen that kind of depict the fashion world. And it's usually high fashion, right? Like Paris, kind of that level that does seem really unattainable to most people. In fact, Daniel and I we had a client last year, a potential client we were researching, a watch client. And I was in Paris when we were talking with this client, and I went into some of the designer shops on the Champs-Élysées, and I felt so out of place. Like here we had this potential fashion, they had, like really high quality watches. And it just felt so out unattainable almost to be able to match the level of what I was seeing in Paris. So I love the idea. Does that make sense? I feel
No, 100%. And I think
yeah,
you're speaking exactly to people should not feel uncomfortable in
yeah,
fashion.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I know some people would walk into Neiman Marcus, even locally for us, and be like, I just don't fit here. And with what we're doing here, that's my goal, is to break that like stigma of you belong here if you are a creative in fashion. You know,
Yeah.
we're here to support you. You don't have to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, I love that. And so you could, yes. So again, your imagery could really help that. Maybe not models, maybe, average people doing the work, making the dresses, doing the writing, doing the photography, something that people can resonate with. The average person, not, high fashion on Paris, which was completely overwhelming to me when I was when I was there. So I think that is a great place to start. I do also have a comment about your black and white theme. I know why you did this. It's because you're trying to make it. It's kind of an artsy thing to do. You want it to look high fashion, but maybe based on what you've been telling me, that's not the direction you want to go, right?
And I'm listening to you, and I'm going to interrupt real quick because I understand that. I think when I was creating like the brand picture of this in my head, I wanted to give a very, I don't even want to say uppity, but a more of a, this is not just any organization kind of feel. Mm-hmm. I might have misstepped with going fully black and white, because even on my Instagram, I am too. Fine, but I didn't explore. I would love to hear your thoughts on that, Tricia and Daniel, about kind of what kind of creative way that I could keep that vision of mine without fully sacrificing those monotones that I'm trying to get that feeling for.
Well, what I think you're trying you're trying to represent fashion and the ability to, go big and be like a high fashion designer. I don't know what the term would be, but if your target audience are people who are still growing that, I would make it a little bit more, feel like a little bit more, I don't know. This feels very,
cold.
Yes, thank you. Cold is the word I'm trying to think.
Friendly.
Yeah, I would actually like to see some colors. I would like to see a rack of dresses with the color. Just because you're introducing color doesn't mean that it can't be sophisticated. That's the word I was thinking, sophisticated. So you can still make it sophisticated, but maybe not. I feel black and white. That's a very artsy, cold, top designer thing to do. Right?
So what I like a lot, my favorite color is black, so that's where it stems from, is my own love for the dark colors.
Black is still great, but it doesn't have to be all black and white. So still keep it clean and simple. That's my recommendation. Still think clean and simple. And you can have just like your overall, like maybe what you do is your theme is black and white, but your pictures add color, right? The photographs add color. And I do have something to say about white text on black backgrounds. It can be a little bit jarring to the eyes. Sometimes if you look at your title here on your black background, see how there's kind of a little bit of a glow around the letters. There's a glow. Typically, I don't recommend doing white on black. I would flip it. And then we don't even use actual black, Alyse. We always go like with a hex color, 333, which is a very dark gray. It's a very dark gray to help with some of the readability of that, just because it's so stark this way. So yeah, so again, I still think it's a great idea to do clean and simple, and maybe still black and white, grays as your base, but then bring in some color with your photography. And that would be my recommendation.
No, 100%. I completely agree. didn't think about doing a fully black page. Like I said, it stems from my love of black. And so, I did try to add in it to be a little more creative. I did add in some backlinks on some of the website to give where I've had other articles published about us. So I'm trying to gather everything y'all taught me in like the 18 weeks that I was with y'all, and then put it all on the website to be very not so amateur.
No, that's great. And this is why we love that you're in our podcast, so we can help you with that. And I agree with Daniel that some of the images don't quite make sense. Like, you've kind of got this cool, it's like a cool video behind we're published, but is that really, what does that have to do with fashion? Not really anything, right? So yes, going back to the photography, I would kind of rethink some of those choices. I think that'd be really helpful.
So just to demonstrate, the impact that your wording can have, I've swapped out your welcome to Joli Fashion Society that occurs above, and I can't get it to swap into the desktop view, unfortunately, so it's stuck in the mobile. But transforming Texas creatives into fashion industry leaders speaks directly to the creatives. It speaks to their desire to grow, to become leaders, and it highlights that they're Texan, right?
Right.
Something like that might better resonate with your target demographic.
Yeah.
And it might make them sign up
Inspired.
because they're ready to transform. They're ready to do that, right?
Right.
We haven't spoken to community or support or fostering growth, but the words themselves give that kind of feeling. They do a lot of that for us. And then the content that we provide later, deeper into the page, can do that for us as well, if these
Right.
7 words don't cut it.
That is, I read that and I know what this website's about. It really does make a big difference.
It changes the narrative.
It does.
Right.
Yeah.
So your website, I'm going to get a little brutal here for a second, Alyse. Your website is built using Wix, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
Okay.
I know we learned on WordPress.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I started building this on WordPress, and there were different bumps in the road that I was having regarding, and as simple as I couldn't get the containers right. Okay. Like, it was simple things, but it was, at the time, I didn't want to not have a website up. In the future, I would love to move it over, do a higher quality server or host, and then having those options. It is on Wix. I know you told me when I started class 2 about Wix, and it was just easier for me.
No, I understand that it's easy. And that's the beauty of tools like Wix, tools like Squarespace. They help non-professionals in the web development world spin up a decent website really quick. And kudos to you for doing that. You're right. WordPress, we advertise WordPress as, oh yeah, it's easy once you learn it, and once your website's built, it's easy to maintain and it's easy to change things. No, it's not. That's a lie. It's not. It's easy to break things. It's easy to change things and ruin them. But it takes a lot of know-how.
Right.
So seeing that you started in that space, in that space, and then you were like, this isn't working for me, I'm going to pivot. Congratulations. Yes, good. That you've got to. You can't just get stuck in on the one thing and give up because it's not working for you. But the problem with Wix is you don't have the finer controls with regard to search engine optimization, with regard to the metadata in the back end from a technical perspective, with regard to performance and accessibility. You have handcuffs with any tool that's Wix or Squarespace, Shopify, not Figma, Flywheel. They're all different problems. So what I would recommend is not Flywheel, Webflow. What I would recommend is when the budget is there, bring somebody in to change it. Work within the platform that you've got currently. Make all of the changes that we recommend that you're able to, and take note of the ones that you're not able to change and prioritize them later, right? The website is relatively fast. To say that you have a chat bot on your website, it's doing pretty well, but it's really quite empty. When we grade the performance of a website, typically the core web vitals are associated with how long it takes the initial above the fold page to load. And so, they've probably deferred the JavaScript for the Let's Chat until after the DOM has loaded. And so that helps spin it up more quickly, which is good. That's great. But Wix feels less professional. And if you are trying to enter into a space where people are spending thousands of dollars on an item of clothing that they may only wear once, and you've spent whatever you've spent over at Wix to spin this site up quick and easy, there's a disconnect, right? And so we want to put the most professional face forward that we can afford to, that we have the time to, and then over time improve it. So I'm not saying drop Wix today. I am saying as this grows, drop Wix, move to a more professional place when you've got the budget.
Yeah, and and it's definitely the goal. I do see that in the future, definitely, moving to a more professional site. Like I said, I really wanted to have a platform to start with. It was a brand new, like I said, I'm a single, owner of all of my businesses. So really doing stuff, I don't want to say budget friendly because that's not true. I've invested a lot in a lot of the things that I do personally, but if I was able to create it to just get my message to people where I'm not just
financially conscious.
Yes, and not just relying on social media. You know how I love social media. That was a very easy way for me to get my message out. But I wanted the website to show, look, I'm really serious about this, and understanding, yeah, it's not a highly professional website. Like I said, be brutal, and I love to hear it because I've already had plans in the future to switch over and bring someone in to do this and have it all the little like silver bells and whistles on it that I'm wanting. But I also have to tell myself to slow down a little.
So
it goes both ways.
let's talk about a couple of things that you can hopefully do within the platform that you're currently connected to. And these are items that both Tricia and I independently brought to the conversation before meeting with you. And we're both like, oh yeah, snap. So the very first thing, and you're not seeing it on my site because I've already closed it, is when I land on your page the very first time, there's a pop-up to take an action. That will never work because if this is my first touch, I don't even know who you are or what you are. Why ever would I give you my digital currency, which is my email? Right. I'm only going to feel comfortable and confident doing that after I've seen the transforming Texas creatives into fashion industry leaders, and I go, oh snap, that's me. I'm trying to grow with this. Yeah, help me, right?
Right.
So you want to kill that instant pop-up. Pop-ups may work when somebody's moving their mouse to close the tab, but I would hesitate to believe that that would work under this current scenario.
Right.
I'm curious if you've ever had anyone sign up for the very first time when they land on your site and they have that pop up. You could trigger that pop up maybe after they've been on site for X number of minutes, like 2 or 3 minutes, then bring up the pop up. That might be the perfect opportunity to get them to, oh, snap. Yeah, of course. I totally want to do that. Right.
And the
Um,
thing is on every page at the bottom, there is a space for them to add their email as well.
right.
Um,
Well, the
so
pop up the pop-up could work. I can totally see it working, but not on
right
load and
away.
not on close, right? Not
Mhm.
on close. I would have it as set at a delay of time on site or on page, depending on what the parameters you have available to you.
Right.
Um, Another thing that Trisha and I both identified was what is the what is the intention, what do we expect our first touch website visitors to do when they come to our site, to your site? Is it go to the about page, membership, services, forum, shop, contact, or search? Search is so big.
Yeah.
It's in your face. And what in the world are they searching for on your website?
Right.
I'm curious if they would ever even use the search bar. Maybe within the forum, we need a search bar because people want to be able to search for a conversation. That tracks. But I can't get
Right.
to the forum from here unless I'm a member and I'm signed in. So having that search bar straight out in front of my face, as big as it feels like a miss.
Right. And maybe I need to work on how to access the forum as well, because the goal for that is not to have just members being able to speak. I really wanted it to be more of a community space to have
Uh-huh.
conversation. Um, so maybe I need to go in and restructure the requirements to get into it.
At least to access and read,
Yes,
that would be one thing. Not to write, not to
right.
comment. They need to be members in order for that. Otherwise, you're going to have bots doing all the work, and it's going to get ugly real quick.
Okay.
Alyse, were you using a theme that maybe had some of these things already in place, like the search bar, or is that something that you can easily turn off?
Um, I did use a theme, but a lot of it's not even the same.
Mhm.
Okay.
I moved a lot of stuff around. I reorganized. I liked stuff differently. I use a theme as just a mental template for myself, and then mostly I
Yeah,
just it's like when you like have a house already decorated and you just go in and you redecorate it anyway. That's kind of what I
yeah,
use my templates for.
yeah.
It's not so
Staging.
much. Yeah, it is staging. It helps me kind of see like, okay, this is what they have there, but I don't really like a whole conversation there. I want to move it lower, or I want to move it to the right, or you know, I always remember y'all saying if I ever put a picture, have it facing the text. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've always remembered that since. Um, but yes, I did use a template to start. Um, I could probably take off the search,
Okay.
and
Yeah,
it's
that's
not a huge deal.
okay, cool. Yeah, that's not something that I don't think is really necessary for the majority of sites, unless you have a really content heavy site. And there's just no reason to use real estate up there for that, right?
Right.
Another thing I would like to see if you have the option, I see that you have a shop in a shop. Sometimes you have the ability to have the shopping cart up in your nav bar. And I feel like that's just a second indicator to people that, oh, I can buy stuff here, right? So I would look into settings and see if that's an option to have your cart show up on your homepage. It usually is. I also have another thing to say about your header. Your logo is very tiny, and I don't know if you have the ability to change that. And I would also take the tagline off it. You can't see the tagline at all. It's just like a little blur of something there, right? So take the tagline off and see if you can make that logo a little bit bigger. That would be my recommendation.
Would you recommend it staying in the square?
I would have to see what your options are. I think your logo is fine. It's just not very big. And again, I don't know if that's the limitation of the theme you chose, but hopefully you could just make it a little bigger.
I can adjust it. I just didn't want to do it. Although I'm adjusting things, I'm like, oh, that looks fine. I never wanted to be like, oh, why is that logo so massive for no reason? And I didn't want to make it like weird.
That's a very, very valid point. That's something that we complain about as designer developers all the time, is our clients are like, oh, I want the logo bigger. You've heard us complain about it in class, I'm sure. So you're right. It shouldn't be massive in your face, but it could stand to be a fair bit bigger and still not feel like it's in your face, especially if we get rid of the search bar.
Yeah.
Another thing that needs to be bigger is your nav items. They're all really quite small. And I don't feel like they're easy to access. I feel like they're probably 14 point font, maybe 15. They could probably be 18 or 20. And
probably. I know when I created the website, I had it more intended for like mobile use, which is probably why I'm going to pull it up on my phone real quick.
And on mobile, they're sized really well. So I wouldn't adjust anything on mobile.
Really well on mobile.
Yep.
Yeah, so I just, because I feel like when someone goes to look, especially nowadays, everyone's using their phone. Having that really great mobile site is a lot more important than doing it. I feel like just whenever I use my stuff, I use my phone a lot more when I'm looking up stuff and when I'm on the website. But I am creating the website with it built out on to a laptop to start, if that makes sense.
Well, I would say as a designer, you need to think about both formats. For sure, people are using their phones, and that's super important. But desktop is still widely used. Yeah, exactly. So you do need to kind of consider that as well. Another thing I wanted to point out, Alyse, is I can tell that your nav is aligned differently than the logo is. Your logo is inside what we call the fixed area of your website, whereas your nav is going wide. And so when you like move the screen, they don't move together. Do you see that? Like your logo ends up like way over here on the right and your nav is way over on the left. So that might be another setting. Just make sure you're either going full width for both or fixed width for both. Go and check that setting.
I will.
Yeah. I was going to talk about the chat bot. Daniel, should we talk about the chat bot?
Yeah.
So we noticed you have a rather large chat bot here. That's another thing that we don't typically see on this kind of a website. How are you using that? Is it helpful, or is it just kind of a feature that's not being used?
I do get some questions. It's just kind of for those people that want to ask the really short questions. I'm not getting it like massive in the senses of like it's constantly used. I am getting some of the, I'm looking real quick. I do get people, but sometimes they're like spam. So it's like, oh, you want to update your website? And I'm like, no.
Let's try to unpack what questions you are getting, because what I'm not seeing here is a frequently asked questions page, which would help with search engine optimization. It would help with getting potential feature snippets in Google search results, and it would reduce the need for something like a chatbot. And then the contact page itself could be more encouraging for those harder questions to answer, right?
Okay.
So I would recommend building a facts page and having all of those FAQs there, easy for people to find, and then having the contact page really open to, if you have any questions that are not answered in the facts, come to my contact and fill out the form, right? So that will link over to your contact page, and then the contact content can say, have any questions that aren't in the facts, hit me. I'm happy. I'm here for you, or join the forum to answer, to look for other questions that are more related to fashion rather than the society.
Right.
But so I feel like the chatbot, it's good that it's being used. You now have the data. As we say in class, you either start with data or you build data. So you've built some data. Use that data to reverse engineer what types of FAQs you need, at least from the onset for building that page. But then maybe kill the chatbot. The chatbot, removing the chatbot feature from your website may also improve the user experience, because it could potentially be slowing the page performance down. Okay. And if you remove it, then your performance score could go up 5-10 points, depending on how it's integrated. It may not have any impact at all. Tricia mentioned the video animation that's playing behind the We're Published page. I don't recall if she mentioned the black text on the white buttons, but it's so thin I can't see it.
Okay.
So we need to make that font weight like 500 or 600 for Voyage Dallas and Canvas Rebel to make it really stand apart. Okay. Otherwise it just disappears into the white. And we did talk in class a lot about choosing your images, making them meaningful. That also applies to your animations. Okay. This animation doesn't really mean anything to me. It's cool looking, but it doesn't mean anything. I think that's where I'm
trying to get in the energy of bringing in more of a technology focused field. Since we were, kind of bringing up, doing it a little more sci-fi kind of. I don't know how to put it. I feel like when fashion's going in with AI, like that gives me that sci-fi feeling that I wanted to give my audience when they were going to look at things, like, oh, it's super, wow, that's really different of the page to do than, because like I said, I think AI fashion is like the next frontier and we're about to head there. So.
Well, I see where you're going with that. Yeah, I see where you're going with that. I like that. And it does give me that feeling. But the news, the links that I go to don't really correlate to that same concept. So I would say it has an application somewhere, but maybe to a link that's talking about integrating AI in fashion.
Okay.
Great. And then going that direction.
Alyse, so I'm looking at your membership page and I have a question. How do I become a member?
Literally at the moment, all I have is contact us. I have not built out that page as well as I want and intend to. I was really trying just to focus on creating a very beautiful first step, if that makes sense. Like, I want people to understand what we're doing. I have not pushed memberships hard at all. I really want to just build the community's trust and say, like, look, this is not some scammy thing. I'm not going to try to like poach you for money right away. This is what we're doing. This is what this is what we want to get done. So you're right. It hasn't fully been developed thoroughly yet.
So this is interesting that you said that it sounds like the membership may not be one of the primary focuses of your program. Would you say that that's true? Is that not what you're focusing on?
In the future, it will be.
Okay.
I am giving myself like about a year to a year and a half of just pure, I want to build the trust of the fashion community, because then after that, people will know what you're about, know what you are doing, and then they'll be like, okay, well, now I'd like to be a member. I know what you're doing. I see your vision. Like I was telling y'all, like I'm really trying to support that creative. And so building the trust of the fashion creative is like I'm a nobody in a lot of cities. Nobody knows who I am. They don't know my background. And so what I'm trying to do is just build the trust of like, look, I'm true to my word. I've gone to the Valley multiple times. I had my launch party in Austin. I have a trip to Dallas coming up for fashion that I'm going to. I have a trip to Houston as well in August. So I'm trying to show Texas like I'm a singular like owner of this, but I am going to go. I'm true to my word. I'm going to go
Mm-hmm.
support your cities. I'm going to go show up. And then I'll push memberships when people are like, oh, okay, like, yes, I see what you're doing. You're saying true to your word. You're not being. The fashion industry, what a problem is that it's scammy sometimes. Depending on organizations, it's a very easy way to promise a lot and not give a lot. So you can be like, oh,
So
join my model camp. Here's an example. And they go around all the US.
yeah.
Join a model camp. You can be a published model. You can, get signed with an agency. And the agency's the model camp. It's not a real agency. It's the model camp. You take photos and the photos just end up on their social media. And
Okay.
so I'm very much trying to do stuff without requiring people to pay at first so that I could build that trust. Like, look, I'm not in this for your money. I'm not going to promise you these things because you're going to give me membership money.
Okay.
All right, but how does this business thrive?
Yes.
Not wrong. So that's why I say in the future. I've been at this for since October, and then I launched that it was mine because I kept it a secret for a while, and then I launched that it was mine officially in February. So the memberships will be coming up more prominently in the fall, where I'll start marketing that more. Right now, I'm just trying to get a few events in different cities to show that I travel, and then build up just kind of like my connections. So when I go work in those cities, then I go one time, it's an introductory. So I do business development in my financial institution. So
Mm-hmm.
introductory visits are always super important to me. And then I follow up with, okay, now this is what I'm selling, instead of just, I don't want to hard hit them. It's not,
Sure.
I don't,
But
I
so
don't like functioning like that. So I didn't want to do it to others.
no, that's fair, and that's really that's great. But we have a disconnect. On one page, you're eventually selling memberships, and that's probably how you're driving the bulk of the revenue for the company. On your about page, however, you have donations, and it feels like a major disconnect to be accepting donations for a for-profit business.
So it was two different, and I understand it's two different things. I'm creating a scholarship. So
Okay,
within the
so
organization, the donations are for a scholarship. Everyone, all the students that are under the membership of the protege one
mhm.
will have an opportunity to get the scholarship. And so my goal is to help graduating seniors in their fashion degrees have a little money to either finish out their last semester, or like it's mostly for school. It's just to help them out in their last semester. So when they do be able to go be a creative after school, they don't have to go work a lower pay grade retail job and give up their dreams of not doing design or
Which is
not
great.
doing the creative aspect.
And that's fantastic. I would say you need a dedicated page to that and have that a separate section where you can encourage others to donate towards the protege membership scholarship, but have it a separate ask entirely. Right now, it looks like that money is going to you because it's
because I'm within
right next
the same
to it
aspect.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alyse, something you just said is really interesting to me. So, you are traveling and you're pitching this. Okay, so this is good to know. It sounds like primarily you are making connections first. You're talking with people first. And this is probably the second touch. After you talk to them, you say, here's my website where you can learn more. And the purpose of your website is to help establish you as authentic, trustworthy, somebody who is actually building this space. And not scammy. Those are the words that you used, right? Okay, so this is good to know. I think that you really need to evaluate your content and the hierarchy of things, right? So a lot of times when people are looking at a nav, for instance, the order of the things you have in your nav kind of highlight what's most important on the website. So you have home, you have about, the next thing you have is memberships. I honestly, for me, thought that was a very high priority for your site. And you're saying that's actually something you're going to work on down the road, the line, but that's actually not what you're primarily using this website for yet. That's like a side idea, right? So I would...
Like we were talking about that second, sorry, real quick, that second touch point, my main source of connection with people is also social media. So you go to the my social media first, and then you go to the website. So I wanted it to be a deeper dive into Joli, what they're not seeing on the social media, but that correlates efficiently to where it's like, oh, I see her traveling because I post all our videos of everywhere we go. I post where we're going. All the shows I do, I take videos, I make a reel, like I dedicate that page to that. And they're like, okay, look, I see her, she's moving everywhere. Oh, how do I learn more about this? And so the website's supposed to be not a capture, but a place where people can sit and read and learn and truly enjoy. If you're going to the Instagram connected to my face, that is my personal Instagram, just saying.
I think that your website could really benefit from a blog, Alyse. Having a blog where you're writing about your travels and posting pictures from your travels, and I'm doing this now, and I'm about to go here, and I just went to this city.
It's a hidden page right now, so I'm working on that. That's where I'm also I'm trying to get in. If you go back to the homepage, at the bottom it's saying looking for bloggers. I did not give a connection to that, but I'm basically trying to get them to inquire to where if they wrote about the up and coming fashion season, what's the summer trends, and they want to write about it, I want to give them that space, calling all fashion bloggers and writers. And yeah, maybe it's not displayed as well, which we've talked about a lot of the colorations and stuff, and I completely understand. But it's a work in progress. I do have a newsletter that goes out right now, not consistently because I don't have enough content yet. I don't want to send something out and it's like, oh great, she sent me another email and it has nothing in it. I delete them or I just unsubscribe. So instead of but at some point when a blogger submits, there's an option of that blog piece, it to be cropped and put into the newsletter so they get highlighted again through the people that actually interact with us.
That is a great idea.
I think that's a great idea. It's not too premature to be advertising it, but you want to make sure that all of the necessary pieces are soon to be in play. Otherwise, we need a coming soon feature, right? Something like that
And I
that
have
makes
an
it clear that
introductory
it's not
blog
there yet.
that I'm going to post soon. I'm finishing it up actually this weekend. So the blog is very like within hopefully the next week. It should be up
Okay.
in like a space for them to see and read.
And so we've got this join the club down at the bottom. This feels a little confusing. Am I joining the membership when I sign up, or am I joining the newsletter membership when I sign up? Or is
The
it one and the
newsletter.
same? Okay, so
No,
with
it's
it
the
being the
newsletter.
newsletter, I would have that CTA closer to something about the newsletter itself, right? I know we
Okay.
have the email list here, but that doesn't mention the newsletter. And it doesn't have to be connected to this because this is calling for the bloggers referencing the
Right.
newsletter. So we need some other information highlighting there's a bi-weekly newsletter. Join here, subscribe here.
Right. And I think where I've been also not putting as much on my homepage, and I want your honest opinion about this. I didn't want the
Mhm.
homepage to be like a mile long.
Right.
Um,
I I think that that's accurate.
okay.
But you do need your homepage to at least hit on the key points, and then all of these different items can dial deeper in, right? We need to
Right.
link to the page that actually talks about the newsletter that may have like this is the the most recent newsletter, you can read it for free here, right? And so you could dynamically perhaps pull in recent newsletters to that page so that they can see, oh man, yeah, this is a really good newsletter. I would love to receive this in my inbox, so that when they do subscribe, they are genuine and they will open your newsletters because they know what's inside that box, right? So yes, you would want to link to something describing the newsletter. You would want to link to your memberships. You're right. You don't want to be too heavy with content. That's what the other pages, the internal pages, are for. Um, but we need to at least be a little bit more clear with the ask or the
Right.
directives, right? Because when somebody signs up as a member, they are not necessarily, unless you make it abundantly clear, they're not necessarily joining the newsletter. They may want to be members and they may not want to receive your biweekly emails,
Right.
right? So they have to opt in rather than opt out. Um, and so you'll need to be able to segment those. Well, similarly, if I see join the club and I don't know that this is for the newsletter, I might think, because like Tricia was saying, the membership, signing up for the membership is kind of confusing. Um, I might think that I'm signing up for membership with this. So we need to have
Right.
more clear terms over in the membership area that say membership is currently locked. It will be unlocked in the fall of 2023 for new members to join, right? And then that makes it clear for me.
Right. And then it's
So
like more of a
just,
coming soon.
yeah, yeah. And from a behavioral economics kind of perspective, a psychological perspective, the reference to membership is currently locked and will be unlocked could mean a lot of different things. It sounds like it's active and I'm not allowed to join, exclusive, right?
Hmm.
As opposed to coming soon, sounds like underdeveloped,
Right. 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 Right.
right? So,
Just the way you word stuff.
uh huh. Um,
Alyse,
so Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say one more thing. On your About page, I know that
Yes.
this Instagram links to your personal Instagram, and I know that you're big on Instagram. I would have another one next to it for LinkedIn, and I would be clear somewhere that this is visit Alyse's personal social media
Okay.
accounts, because there's no difference between these two icons to tell me that one takes me to the JFS Insta and the other takes me to the ADZ Insta.
Right.
That is a really good point.
That it is a great point. I do a lot of fashion stuff on my personal Instagram as well that I post. So, which is why I thought it was important to include, because I am signed. I don't know. I didn't say that throughout this whole thing. I'm signed with agencies in New York, LA, and Louisiana for acting and modeling. So, and I also am a talent agent for fashion creatives that are hair, makeup, and stylists out of Chicago. So I am an active working member in the industry. And I wanted people to know, hey, this lady that created this, it's not just, a side passion. Like, she's an active working member that's already currently involved in larger markets.
Sure.
And you talk about that in your Meet the Owner section, which I think is great. Those are really great things to highlight, and very cool. Congratulations. You're making your way, my friend. It's awesome. Yeah, you do. Just echoing what Daniel was kind of saying about your homepage again, do use that real estate to just direct people to what's most important in the website, right? So it doesn't have to be long, and it shouldn't be, just like you said. Just use this little blocks of spaces to direct people to the most important content on your site. And then I would suggest, back to your nav, think about the hierarchy again. I think about is in a good place because that is so important. I would build out that page, but maybe you put memberships and the forum under about, because those aren't taking priority right now, but they're things that are kind of about you. And then that's going to move services over, which seems like a big thing you're working on right now, because that has to do with what you're presenting to these clients, potential clients that you're talking to, right? And then you'll have shop, which should be at the end, because it's kind of a side thing you're doing. And then end with contact. And on your contact page, we were noticing, one thing that we noticed is you have this little social media Instagram button above your form, which I don't think really needs to be there because you already have the icon in your footer. And it's funny because it's like really bright. It's like the only color on the page. So it's like social media.
I'm like, yeah, check this out.
So you don't need that there because you clearly have the Instagram icon in your footer. So so that's what I would say about that. And again, contact us. I would probably choose some images here that represent you more, maybe even pictures of you on here, because when people are contacting us, who are they contacting? They're contacting you, right?
Right.
So I think that would make sense to have it obvious that you are the one they are contacting.
It's me.
Yeah.
Not a broken up face.
Exactly. Exactly.
Makes sense.
So there were two other small points. I need to bring them up on the screen. One of them, they're both typos. So on the About page, you reference the exclusive fellowship of the Texas Fashion Elite. Fellowship is actually a word, and it means followers rather than leaders. But you're really trying to set a leadership standard. So fellowship. And that tracks because that's the word that you use on another space. And then I can't remember where it was. Life and what was it? Live and breathe it on the same page. That breathe needs an E. That's like live and breath it.
Okay.
So it needs an E.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
I can read it 1,000 times and I probably would never catch it.
Oh, I know. Me, I'm the same way.
Yeah, we typically have somebody read through the websites we design, Alyse, and proofread it for us, because just like you said, when you've looked at it and you've read your own content, 50 times, you miss stuff. So it's always good to get another pair of eyes on it. Something I noticed, and I noticed this specifically on the memberships page, is you're also misusing caps. Like, you have a lot of words in caps that don't need to be in caps. So go and check that.
Right. So we haven't really talked much about your your current digital marketing practices outside of your website. We've mentioned that you've got your two different Instagram channels. You do a lot of live events, which is traditional marketing.
Right.
Um, I'm guessing that at this stage you're not running any paid ads, and that would make sense. I wouldn't spend any money on paid
I
ads yet,
am
not
on
until.
social,
Are you?
actually.
Okay.
On
And
social, I
what's
do.
what's what's the goal? What is your objective with running those ads on social?
Larger reach. I'm really going for more of just a reach. I'm trying to get
Okay.
more
So
people to
it's
see my content on social, at
okay.
least.
Are you right? So you're not driving people to your website
No.
yet. That's not the objective. It's to get more engagement, larger follower base, something like that.
Right.
Okay. Um, you know this from class. I'm just going to go ahead and mention it. Uh, I highly recommend against running paid ads for followers on Meta, Facebook in particular. Instagram is slightly different, especially if you're trying to establish yourself as an influencer and you're running it on your personal Instagram page rather than your business Instagram account. Um, but on Facebook, it's going to go against you. And seeing that you don't have Facebook advertised anywhere in here, I'm assuming that we're safe from that. But what I would do is try to, like you said, reach the simple objective for brand awareness, getting the message out, getting people to come and see your account is fine. But what could end up happening even in Insta is you get a very large follower base because you have intentionally gone after it, but they're not genuine followers. And that will dilute the efficacy of your messaging being spread organically without paid ads later. So the larger
Right.
your non genuine follower base grows, the more expensive it's going to get over time for you to actually get your messaging out to people who genuinely might care.
Right.
Whereas if you are trying to establish yourself as an influencer and you can get yourself up to, 100,000 followers, um, and you're harnessing those numbers, the vanity metrics to demonstrate, hey, look, this is how many followers I have. That's great, but you need to make real sure that those followers are also engaging with your posts, because anyone with any sense will look at your follower base and then look at the engagement numbers and
And be
see
like, it's
there's a
not adding up.
mismatch, and then yeah, be like, yeah, you bought those one
Yeah,
way
I've
or
seen
another,
people
you
at
bought
that
them.
bottom, and it's like,
Yeah.
why? You're totally messing up your metrics on that. Like, your
Right.
numbers of how
Right.
many people follow you are trash compared to like your real like views.
Right. Exactly
No,
right.
and I understand. When I've laid off a lot on the paid ads for social media, especially for Jolie, because it was initially just to try to get knowledge out. Like, just, oh, this
Yeah.
is a new organization. I don't want to say get some followers, but get people that would look at the ad and be like, oh, okay, I follow them. And then they
Mm-hmm.
do. Um,
So for
that's basically
you,
it.
it seems like having the right followers is super important. Have you ever used influencers as guests? Have you tried doing that? This feels like something that might work in your space.
I have not yet. I do have um, some goals of the future. Maybe I was thinking of doing. See, the thing is, like, I'm doing a lot. So
Yes.
at some point, I would love to do like not a podcast, but a podcast in a sense of where I can get um, highly respected fashion creatives in the industry, bigger, larger markets, to have conversation, whether that's in their respective fields. So if it's a designer, talk about how they got started. give some tips and tricks, kind of like what we're doing here, but for the fashion creative. And I have a friend that's in New York. She's a model, and we have it scheduled soon. She works a lot, so it's always like, oh, I'll do it. But then, so I have it TBD, but she's going to come on and talk about modeling, how she got started, how she started it all. And then the goal is to record that and put that on the website. So over time, having a bunch of those where people can opt in of seeing it live and asking live questions, kind of like a Zoom, record it, and then on demand.
Yeah.
I think a podcast is a great idea for your business. That makes so much sense, Alyse. And I think you would have so much interest. In fact, it's interesting. We have another student who is a fashion photographer that we are interviewing in about 2 weeks. I'm going to connect you to. We're doing some similar things. That is such a great idea. I think that would produce a lot of content for you too. That's why Daniel and I started our podcast. This is a good way for us to create content for our own social media and for YouTube and Instagram Reels. Are you on TikTok? Because it seems like TikTok would be good for you too.
I personally am. Joli is not. So I dabble in TikTok. It's not my favorite platform. Mm-hmm. I'm a huge Instagram shockingly. It's not my favorite. I love Instagram. So my heart's with Instagram. And then obviously since Facebook's in Meta, I know how to do Facebook too, because at my financial institution, I do all of it except TikTok. So I do Twitter, LinkedIn, and all of that.
All right. So this brings up an interesting question I have that I feel will resonate with a lot of people listening to our show. So there's a balance when you are choosing which social media platforms to focus on. And if the balance is where's my target audience? What platform is my target audience using versus what do I personally like using? What do I feel comfortable using? How much time do I have to dedicate to this? It's a balance. And so how do you see that playing out? So you're in the fashion world. Where do you feel like your potential clients and followers are visiting most? Where do they live?
I do have to say Instagram. A
Okay.
lot of these startup fashion designers do like Instagram to sell, and do a little more like guerrilla selling. I like to say, like, not guerrilla marketing, but it's like guerrilla selling where they just throw it on a picture and they try to sell it that way. I do intend on doing TikToks in the future. So all the videos I've created for Joli, I've created them on a separate platform and then I uploaded them onto Instagram. So the videos are already pre-created. I just need to add songs to them. So then that means I can keep all the content, it being my own without having to save it. And Instagram has, I hate the watermarks and all that. No. I do see myself going to either YouTube or TikTok. YouTube, because of the YouTube Reels or the Shorts, that's super, super popular right now, and it's only growing. And I've gotten some insights from I don't know if you know of the Kim Dawson agency in Dallas. They're a really, like, they're a legitimate, like, high quality agency. A lot of girls come out. They start in Dallas and then they'll go to New York through Kim Dawson. So the way that works would be like, I live in San Antonio. I have a mother agency locally. She takes care of me. I sign in Dallas. She gets 10% and then, or 5%, and then Kim Dawson gets 10% of my work. And then what Kim Dawson does will connect me with another market. So their goal is to get me to another market. So then the money they make, they'll get money. It kind of like, it's like a funnel down. Yeah. But they've told me that YouTube Shorts, way to go. And I talked to them in November. So I'm shooting for YouTube more so than TikTok, just because I feel like creating a YouTube video is a little more long-term and it doesn't need to be so hot so fast. TikTok, it's like, oh God, I have to always think on my toes, which is fine because I love social media, which is my other business. But it's like, not me. I don't know. It's okay. I do it for myself, but business wise, it's a hit or miss for your business. I think
Yep.
TikTok is.
I agree. You're right that YouTube Shorts are the fastest growing social media platform right now. And what's really cool is if you are doing a lot of video, it's pretty easy to put them on a reel, YouTube short, and then TikTok if you want to or not, right? That's what's so great. Anytime I'm shooting video for a client, I have the different lengths that reel requirements or the short requirements or TikTok in my head as I'm filming. So I typically try to do shorts or video that's under a minute because then I know I can go and use it everywhere, right? So shorts are only a minute. You only get 60 seconds right now. So that tends to be the first thing I focus on. And then I can go make it into a reel and put on TikTok. So yeah, that's a really good, if you know that most your follower base is on Instagram, then focus on that and some reels. But yes, maybe consider making instead of 90 seconds, which is what you can do for a reel, consider making reel or video that's 60 seconds, and then you can go put it on YouTube too. And kind of kill two birds with one stone.
Because when it comes to even reels on Instagram, they are telling you to hit about 10 seconds. That's after that, people are starting to scroll after that. So if you don't create a good 10-second reel, kind of give it up. So I try to do a few short reels here and there for the reels on Instagram, and then periodically I'll throw in obviously my show, the shows that I'm recording that are a little longer. They'll be about a minute. So.
Well, this has been a really great conversation, Alyse. So we've loved having you. We do need to wrap it up, but before we do, is there one little golden nugget, one key takeaway that you want to tell, the creatives in the fashion world, be they in Texas or anywhere else, about what you're doing, or just anything at all?
I think two things. One, don't be afraid to ask for help and be willing to take all advice. Not all advice is good advice, but if you're willing to listen to it and digest it a little bit, it could be useful for you. And then for Joli, we're here for everyone. And I truly mean that. If you have questions, I might not know them, but someone else in the industry will that I know. And there's always room at the table for people in fashion, and it doesn't have to be nasty like it used to be. Is everyone can have their space. You like photography, there could be another photographer. I mean, the world is huge. Why stop at one?
Right. And that's Joli Fashion Society, JOLI fashionsociety.com. Once again, thank you so much, Alyse, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Lovely seeing you as always. And hope to hear more about the success of Joli as it grows. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Bye, Alyse.
Thanks for tuning in to the We Rock DM podcast. We hope you found our discussions on digital marketing and web design and development helpful and informative. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast to stay up to date on the latest trends and strategies in the world of online business. We'll see you in the next episode of We Rock DM, where we make kick-ass stuff kick-ass.